Clay, or Clem Bertrand, does exist. An NBC News reporter has seen him. Clem Bertrand is not his real name. It's a pseudonym used by a homosexual in New Orleans. For his own protection, we will not disclose the real name of the man Andrews knew as Clem Bertrand. His real name has been given to the Department of Justice. He is not Clay Shaw. What then of Perry Russo's testimony?
In my conversations with Perry Russo, he has stated that his testimony against Clay Shaw may be a combination of truth, fantasy, and lies. He said he wishes he had never gotten into this, but now he feels he has no choice but to go through with it. He said that he's afraid if he changed his testimony, that Garrison might indict him for perjury. He said, suppose Clay Shaw is convicted and gets 20 years and goes through his appeals and he's sitting down there in prison. I might just call from wherever I am and say, bring your film crews down. I've got something to say. On one occasion, Russo said, the hell with truth, the hell with justice. He said, you're asking me to sacrifice myself for Clay Shaw, and I won't do it.
Oh, hey, what do we got today, Hunley? That looks good.
Yeah, something leading into this.
Whoa, that was the June 19th, 1967, of course, the famous NBC white paper, an attack on Jim Garrison by NBC News.
Yep. And this is an interesting day. We came into some stuff which we'll be sharing late in the episode. So, folks, stick around. We will be dropping something in this episode that is surprising. When I came across it, I shocked the hell out of Mark when I shared it with you. Correct?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this is like Christmas in April for me. Holy crap. This is a whale. I thought Eric was kidding when he found this because this does not exist on the planet Earth up until tonight's show. What you're going to see tonight has never been seen before in American history since that time. So what we've got for you today, I'm not even kidding. This is the audio has existed, but we're going to show you something else tonight at the end of this show that shocked me to my toes. I don't know if Oliver has ever seen this. It's depicted in his film, JFK with John Larroquette, playing Johnny Carson. We're going to get into this, how we get to this point. But holy crap. We'll release the whole thing, Eric, somewhere, I presume.
Yeah, after this is complete, we'll release it because we're going to play clips of it. But it's I want everybody to see it. I mean, it's been out there forever. We keep talking about it. This is our second pass at Jim Garrison. We did the show before, and we said, "Yep, there's audio of this. You know, it is what it is. Get what we can." There's more.
I'm really excited about this show, Eric. We did not see this coming. We were going to do a different show, and this came down the pike, and Eric reeled it in with his rod and reel. Deep sea fishing off the coast of New Zealand. And they used to have Wide World of Sports every week. Wide World of Sports, and they would be fishing off the coast of Kathmandu and just crazy things that was kind of like the original Naked and Afraid, but they had clothing on.
And I got to give credit where it's due, though.
Okay.
This is actually brought to me by one of our super fans, Pamela Clifton here, as you can see here with RFK Jr. And his father may come up in this episode. I don't know.
Daddy's coming up in this episode.
Pamela is the one who brought it to my attention. There are always some of you are bringing things to us, and we deeply, deeply appreciate that.
Yeah, so we're going to have some guests coming on in the next month or two that have never been on the show before regarding JFK. I mean, old OG guys before they leave the earth. I want to get these guys on camera for my own stuff. But this particular story starts with a guy this goes back to the Garrison case, is where we're going to start with this story. The Garrison case is infiltrated, as a lot of people know. If you see the JFK movie, the whole office is infiltrated, and it's this is Michael Rooker, of course, who is a composite of a couple of different guys. His character's name is Bill Broussard, but he is also William Gurvich, and Gurvich is one of the guys that doesn't rat Garrison out, but he steals documents and is befriended by the FBI and becomes a mole within the Garrison office. But there's another mole, a lot better, that's never been discussed, and that's Gordon Novel. And Gordon Novel is a cat from Louisiana who is deep state. We're going to have an episode on Gordon Novel. He is brought in by Allen Dulles. Novel is CIA. He's brought in by Allen Dulles. He's paid by Allen Dulles to infiltrate and volunteer for the Garrison investigation. He wiretaps the office, which is Gordon Novel's specialty. He was an electronics specialty, and he knew everyone from E. Howard Hunt to John DeLorean in the 1980s. But what he does out of Louisiana, he was involved in the Slumber. Let me just pronounce the French for people at home or from Louisiana who are upset by what I said a year ago. The Slumber Corporation, which had munitions in Houma, Louisiana, was robbed, and the munitions were stolen by operatives and friends of Gordon Novel. His friends, by the way, his associates that he ran with, were David Ferry, Guy Bannister, and Clay Shaw. Those were the top three associates of Gordon Novel. And they burglarized or robbed this Slumber munitions depot in Houma, Louisiana, and stole the munitions for the anti-Castro Cubans, Eric, to use in the Bay of Pigs. And this is a post-Bay of Pigs situation, where they're trying to get Bay of Pigs 2 to get going. And Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, had told them to stand down, as did JFK, saying he would not allow a Bay of Pigs 2, put it that way. So this office of Garrison's gets infiltrated by Gordon Novel, and he actually pays police officers, New Orleans police officers who are brought in by Garrison as part of the investigation. He pays them off for information. And one of the things Novel says to one of the cops, there's a couple of cops that Garrison brought in to go through the files and investigate different people and find Clay Shaw. There was one cop, this is Gordon Novel here, and Gordon Novel keeps asking the cops were brought in to simply find Clay Shaw. And after 17 days, they still not had physically found Clay Shaw within New Orleans. I think Clay Shaw was out of town at the time. But Gordon Novel is paying these cops to give him information of what Garrison is up to. And Gordon Novel goes in with a Minox camera, by the way, Eric, and photographs all the documents in Garrison's office, and he gives them to Allen Dulles. This is how far back the Dulles post-assassination, post-Warren Commission situation goes. He is literally in bed with Novel and talks to him repeatedly about what he's found. Now, Novel will eventually be subpoenaed by the grand jury by Jim Garrison, and that's going to lead to something else, which I'm going to get to. But run this thing of him for a second. But first of all, before you run that, Gordon Novel keeps asking the cops if Garrison is up to date on the two Oswalds. And the cops tell him, we don't know anything about the two Oswalds. But put up the two photos of Gordon Novel and Oswald. There's a photo I sent you with both of them in the same photo.
I don't have it right now. So okay. Let's watch this first.
All right. Well, let me just finish this thing, because Gordon Novel, I believe, was the Oswald double in New Orleans. And I think that's why he kept asking the cops about the situation in New Orleans with the second Oswald. I think he was the second Oswald. So we'll take it from there.
All right.
opinion, he's perpetrating one of the most enormous frauds on the world and on the United States in particular, and on my home state and on New Orleans. And if it goes much further, there's just no telling where Mr. Garrison will go.
What is his motive? Why is he doing it, in your opinion?
He reminds me of Huey Long. And he reminds me of a combination of Huey Long and some things that I've read about Dr. Goebbels. He's a little bit of both.
Whoa.
What is his motive?
Well, Walter, that's open to conjecture. He can go anywhere with this thing. If he convinces the public that he's real, and that this farce is real, this circus that he's putting on down there is real, he's going to try and ultimately drag in the CIA, and he's going to drag in left and right, and as he says, through the looking glass, black is white and white is black. I think he's the one that's black and white at the same time. He can go anywhere. He can say, well, your government did this. He can say, there's just no telling what he's going to try and say. At the rate he's going, maybe tomorrow you'll be it.
Did he offer you anything to help him?
Yes, Mr. Garrison said that if I needed any financial assistance or did I have any business problems or anything, that I could get him. That I could get anything that I wanted to help him. And I said, no, I don't need any assistance.
Do you have any indication of what he wants you to testify to and why he considers you such an important witness?
Wow. He could get me, I guess, if he could put enough pressure on me, or if he had me in his pocket, the way he has an awful lot of people down there, he could get, he could probably get me to say just about anything he wanted me to say.
Interesting. That's interesting.
So
well, he will flee to Ohio, where the governor of Ohio, Republican governor who was involved in the Kent State, James Rhodes. This is the shot I was talking about before. I believe Novel was the local Oswald double, and he alludes to that, by the way, privately to certain people, that he is doubling them up. He will flee to Ohio once he's subpoenaed. He will be protected by the governor, James Rhodes, who our friends from Ohio know as the Kent State governor that ended up in the massacre, a shooting of 13 students at Kent State University, presided over that, bringing in the National Guard during an anti-war protest in 1970. But this is 1967, and he's trying to get this trial off the ground, Jim Garrison. And Novel is ducking a subpoena. By the way, the guy interviewing Novel right there is Walter Sheridan. He's interviewing Novel for the white paper by NBC, which was signed off by General Sarnoff. Now, General Sarnoff sounds like something out of a Star Trek episode. But General Sarnoff, shown here in his non-military uniform, he was a brigadier general and one of the top propaganda people in the United States post-war, came out of Minsk, settled here, built NBC radio from the ground up, created NBC TV, created color TV, one of the founders of American television, really one of the founders of American television. But Sarnoff is the one who will sign off on the JFK Conspiracy, the case of Jim Garrison, for NBC. That will lead to the FCC intervening from a complaint by Garrison, who requested 1 hour of free rebuttal time. They cut it down to 30 minutes, and that was aired, 30 minutes of uninterrupted Garrison on July 15th, 1967. Garrison, which is an incredible performance. Just Garrison, I think he's sitting on the edge of his desk, if I recall. I haven't seen it in a long time. But Garrison answers all the critics in a 30-minute soliloquy right out of Shakespeare, uninterrupted, without any cue cards or index cards or prompting. In response, when they used to have, Eric, as you recall, a fair truth in news, truth in advertising,
fairness
doctrine, which ended during the Reagan administration. And I believe we have to bring this back because we're way out of control now. I mean, the fact that they gave Garrison 30 minutes in prime time on NBC is shocking. Shocking, even by today's standards, I mean, but it wasn't shocking back then. It really wasn't. But let's back up. This guy Gurvich, This guy Gerbich, the composite that you showed of Rooker, the Bill Broussard character, Gerbich will visit.
There's one more too that's in that character. Bill Boxley.
Bill Boxley, right? Broussard is a combination of Gerbich and Boxley for those people at home. By the way, the John Larroquette, Johnny Carson performance is not in the film; it's in the director's cut. In case anyone starts commenting that I'm out of my mind. It was cut out by Oliver for reasons that may or may not involve the legality with NBC to this at that time. So
I have it if we want to play it.
Well, we'll get all right. Hold on to it because we're going to get there. We're going to get there eventually. So dig this. This is such a crazy story. So Novel gets subpoenaed. He's on the lam, and they bring in a guy. By the way, just for fun's sake. The judge in the case, if you remember the judge in the movie, Judge Edward Haggerty, the chain-smoking judge, he put a gag order on Jim Garrison like they're putting on Trump today. And they threatened him if he said anything about related to the case. And Garrison said, "Go F yourself, put me in jail." And he didn't put him in jail, but he could have put him in jail. Is that Haggerty, the judge?
Yes.
Yeah. Haggerty will later be arrested in a bordello raided by Garrison, where he is on the phone in the background and the girls are in the foreground.
This one?
That's my favorite photo. That's the judge in the famous case in the movie JFK, the trial of Clay Shaw. That's Judge Haggerty, and all the prostitutes are in the foreground. There were more of them in a bordello in New Orleans. I mean, you talk about karma going around being a bitch. Wow. Yeah, Haggerty was quite the piece of work. But this show is not about Haggerty. It's about, in a weird way, it's about Jimmy Hoffa. And you say, Jimmy Hoffa, how is Jimmy Hoffa involved? Well, we're going to go back to the McClellan Committee, the Rackets Committee, and the Get Hoffa Committee, because the reason I wanted to go down this road, the Get Hoffa unit is a unit created by RFK, what's her hero's father. This is Hoffa and RFK over here. He creates a Get Hoffa
Sheridan
unit.
In the middle, by the way.
Yeah, Sheridan in the middle. He creates a Get Hoffa unit that violates all legal norms. This unit, and the reason I'm interested in this case, is the same unit will be switched to Get Nixon. And they, as Jeff Shepard will show when we interview Jeff Shepard later this month, this entire unit that broke the law to get Hoffa had 13 grand juries against Hoffa, Eric, on misdemeanor charges. They brought the entire weight of the federal government down on Jimmy Hoffa and couldn't get him on anything. Not that Hoffa was weaseling out of anything. There was just nothing there to get him on. 13 grand juries, a complete obsession by RFK to get Jimmy Hoffa, hated Jimmy Hoffa's guts. They broke every law in the land and the Justice Department to get Hoffa. This was part of the Get Hoffa unit. And the Get Hoffa unit was led by this guy, William Sheridan. William Sheridan was the best friend of RFK. William Sheridan had the same birthday as RFK. He was the sidekick of RFK. He was the fixer, investigative fixer on the McClellan Committee and the Kennedy family's fixer of all things that may go awry. Walter Sheridan is one of the most unheralded people of the 20th century. And Walter Sheridan deserves to have a spotlight on him. And I don't mean that in a good way or a bad way. But Walter Sheridan is the guy that got things done for the Kennedy family. And in this particular case, it was for RFK. So I don't know, you want to explain this photo or?
Is Sheridan, I believe, tied in with the trial, et cetera.
With Jimmy Hoffa or? I don't know. You put that up there. What does it say on the side? Can you read it?
I can't read it right now.
Okay.
Walter Sheridan, who's been charged. He was charged.
All right. Well, we're going to get to that. So anyway, so Walter Sheridan is one of the most unusual people in American history. You say, well, there's a lot of unusual people in American history, Mark. How could you say that? I'm going to tell you right now. You ready? I tried to tell this to Eric the other night. Walter Sheridan is the only man in American history, unless you can come up with anybody else, 4 years in the FBI, 3 years in the NSA, 1 year in the CIA, and multiple years in ONI. Just let me repeat that. And then it goes to the Justice Department and becomes an apparatchik for RFK. This is the only guy I've ever come across. ONI, FBI, CIA, NSA. Okay? That's who Walter Sheridan is. And the reason Walter Sheridan is important is not just for that. Well, this is really getting in the weeds, so try to bear with me. What the Kennedys did were to create their own agencies outside of these government agencies. The brilliance of the Kennedys, if you want to call it brilliance or nefariousness, was they created private companies that did their bidding because they didn't trust the governmental institutions, if that makes any sense. There was one called the International Investigators Incorporated. This was set up by Walter Sheridan. This was a private investigation firm, people, called the Three Eyes, International Investigating Incorporated, III. It's called the Three Eyes. And in those Three Eyes were ex-CIA, ex-NSA, ex-FBI. Now, Sheridan leaves the FBI because he's a Democratic liberal who hates Hoover's guts. That's why he leaves the FBI, but he's in there for 4 years trying to catch commies, and he doesn't want to catch commies. He wants to catch mobsters, and he's obsessed with mobsters. And the reason he's obsessed with mobsters is because he comes from a city called Utica, just like James Wilcott, and he is born and raised in Utica, New York, not uncoincidentally like James Wilcott was. And he's uber, super duper Catholic. And him and RFK in a Catholic situation are obsessed with these mobsters who are also Catholic, but have gone off the beaten path. And plenty of times him and RFK get together and just discuss Catholicism and the mob, Eric. This I didn't realize. This is quite an obsession that these guys have with the mob, and it involves Catholicism. It involves Italian Catholicism versus Irish Catholicism. This is really into the weeds here, and we'll get to it. But he comes up with these things called doodlegrams. When he meets someone who is an undercover operative like him, they draw a doodlegram, which is a pentagram with a five-sided pentagram with circles at each point. And inside of the pentagram is the code number of the case they're working on. This is how security-minded Sheridan is with people that he's dealing with. Now, you know, this guy's running around also at the same time, Gordon Novel, and Sheridan hooks up with Gordon Novel. And he says, I want every effing thing you've got on Garrison. Now, why does he want everything that is on Garrison? I'm going to tell you why. RFK and Sheridan made a sacred pact that when RFK got back into the White House, they would solve the assassination and murder of his brother. That's why they didn't want Garrison to muddy the waters, and Garrison had to be destroyed. Garrison also had to be destroyed because he was getting into Operation Mongoose, which led back to RFK's door, the operation out of Miami to assassinate world leaders, and in this case, Castro. So it was twofold. It was their obsession with the mob. I'll tell you this. The day after the assassination, RFK sends Walter Sheridan to Dallas. In one day, he comes back with the information of the Jack Ruby payoff that we discussed from the mob for $50,000, that it was a Hoffa associate who delivered the money. Okay? He doesn't believe that the mob did it. He believes that other elements in the government did it, but he's got the payoff of Jack Ruby within 1 day of his brother's death. And that's from Walter Sheridan going to Dallas and meeting with Joe Campisi and other mobsters to find out how Ruby did this. So just think about that, how quickly that Sheridan did this. Sheridan would never reveal to his wife or to anyone else how much information he had gathered on the assassination of Bobby Kennedy's brother. They made the sacred pact. And in fact, Walter Sheridan Jr., his son, on his deathbed, his entire life, Sheridan said, I believe the Warren Commission, just like RFK did. I believe the Warren Commission, I believe the Warren Commission. And his son said, Dad, finally on his deathbed, he said there had to be more, you know, in Dallas that day than just Oswald. And he said there was. And then he died. Okay, so that's how deep he took these secrets. Now, what he hooked up with RFK was they were worried that Garrison would muddy the waters so much that when he became president, this thing would be a mess. Garrison knew about this and said in 1966, 67, that you're never going to be president if you don't open your mouth like I'm doing and start yelling. In other words, RFK took the opposite approach. He said, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to back the Warren report 100%. He addresses this, Jim Garrison. He says they're going to kill you before you get the nomination to the presidency. He says this in 1967, Eric, to his staff. And indeed, that's exactly what happened, because he felt that Kennedy should have been yelling bloody murder about the killing of his brother by someone other than Oswald. Kennedy took this other approach. I'm certain to be president, and the second I get in there, Sheridan and I are going to rip this thing apart. Well, Garrison knew that. How did Garrison know that? Because they had a common friend. Common friend was a guy we did an episode on who I interviewed named Mort Sahl, the comedian. Mort Sahl was a go-between between both worlds. Mort Sahl, shown here, becomes a deputy investigator. He's deputized by Garrison and becomes a legitimate investigator in the murder of JFK. And the Kennedy family turns on Mort Sahl. And Mort Sahl says to them famously, he's there with his wife at a dinner party with RFK. They're sitting next to RFK at a dinner party, and he goes off to do his show, and his wife is grilled by RFK. Like, what does he know? What is Garrison up to? This is of Mort Sahl. His wife is grilled by him, and his wife says, you know, you were sitting next. This is China Lee, the famous Playboy bunny who marries Mort Sahl, who was really brilliant, but she worked as a Playboy bunny, but just a Mensa level intelligence. She says to Bobby Kennedy, you know, you were sitting next to my husband for an hour. Why didn't you ask him then? Why are you asking me this? And she storms off from Bobby Kennedy. So Mort Sahl, his career is starting to get attacked because he's investigating the assassination of the president. And he's not happy about it, you know, and he literally starts yelling to Kennedy's supporters saying, what are you angry at me for? I'm just trying to solve the murder of the guy's brother, for God's sakes. Maybe something you should be doing, getting off your asses and doing. So Mort Sahl goes on to the Tonight Show as a comedian. He go as a, you know, because he's been on there multiple times, Eric, you know. Mm-hmm. And he says, he starts talking about the assassination. And Mort Sahl gets fired, by the way, from his ABC local Los Angeles TV show that he had. Mort Sahl had his own show here in LA for many years. And he gets fired because he's obsessed with the Kennedy assassination. Every show and we covered this in the episode. If people want to see our episode on Mort Sahl, it's down below. I later interviewed Mort Sahl myself years ago before he died, and I befriended Mort Sahl and blah, blah, blah. That's in the episode. But Mort Sahl was the original political comic. He was a protege of Lenny Bruce, a world famous comedian, one of the first political comedians in the world, multiple records, Grammy Award winner. Anyway, so Mort Sahl goes on the Tonight Show and says stuff about the Kennedy assassination, and he's kind of ridiculed by Johnny Carson. And he says to Johnny Carson, he says, you know, you ought to have Jim Garrison on here, the DA of New Orleans, and you don't have the gall or the guts to bring him on. And Johnny Carson takes the bait and says, well, we'll see about that. So he kind of like tricks Johnny Carson into getting Garrison to come on the show. So at that point, I guess it becomes announced that Garrison is going to be on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. And that show, which we're going to get to eventually in this story, would be broadcast January 31st, 1968. And it is Jim Garrison on that show. So the phone rings before this. This is a couple of weeks before the show, maybe 2 or 3 weeks before this. The phone rings, and it's in Burbank right over here. And it's RFK calling Johnny Carson. And he starts yelling at Johnny Carson. This is Robert Kennedy the father of the guy currently running for president, who has a CIA agent as his campaign manager and a deep state operative as his vice presidential running mate. RFK starts yelling at Johnny Carson personally, saying, "You can't have him on the show. He is undermining my brother's name. He's crazy. He's off the track, blah, blah, blah." And Carson says, "It's too late. He's already been booked." And RFK says, "What?" And he says, "Holy crap." Now, Dulles, Alan Dulles, you remember from earlier in this episode, has Gordon Novel in Ohio. He's in Columbus, Ohio, by the way, Gordon Novel. And he begins to hook him up with dozens of Operation Mockingbird journalists. And he gets on the phone to all of them, one by one, Gordon Novel, and begins to smear Jim Garrison because he's out of reach of Jim Garrison's legality in Ohio. So day after day, he keeps saying Garrison is drugging witnesses. He's a liar. I passed a polygraph. Gordon Novel will be polygraphed, a phony polygraph by Walter Sheridan, claiming that he was cleared in 1965. Just so we back up a little bit, because RFK is now out of the Attorney General's office. Remember, LBJ comes in. LBJ wins the election in 64. He now has a new Attorney General. Robert Kennedy is in the wilderness. So Walter Sheridan calls him up and says, "I have decided to take a job at NBC News," which was kind of weird. You know, this ONI, CIA, FBI, NSA guy says, "You know what? I'm going to take a job at NBC News." Now,
Mockingbird.
Right. He had written a book on Jimmy Hoffa, on the trial of Jimmy Hoffa, which the rise and fall of Jimmy Hoffa. So he had some media experience, Sheridan. Okay, but that was Sheridan you saw, by the way, in the opening video that Eric put up. That was Walter Sheridan. So he gets a job through Sarnoff, General Sarnoff, at NBC in 1965. He will then, within 2 years, put together that white paper that you see in the JFK film with Kevin Costner in bed with Sissy Spacek, watching it, saying that they're destroying my reputation, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So Sheridan is now gets a call from RFK, and he says, "You got to get out to Burbank. It's an emergency. Garrison is going to be on the Tonight Show." And Sheridan says, "What?" He'd heard about it through NBC channels, but now RFK says, "Get your ass out there," and gets on a plane, goes to Burbank. I guess he was based in New York, Sheridan, NBC New York. So he goes out to Burbank and he schools Johnny Carson on what to ask in this interview, and literally writes out by hand the index cards that you will see or hear, depending on which version you watch or listen to of the Johnny Carson Tonight Show with Garrison. He is reading from the actual 3x5 index cards written by Walter Sheridan to attack Jim Garrison on the show. But the people don't buy it. People flip out. Garrison becomes very eloquent. He had memorized, knew every work of Shakespeare, which is incredible. He must have had a memory that was unbelievable, because he knew Shakespeare by heart, like every written Shakespearean play, just insane. So he's completely eloquent with Johnny Carson. Carson is getting flummoxed. And in fact, as I told Eric before the show, on the break, Garrison says, "Well, this isn't going too well, is it, Johnny?" And he says that to him, and Carson's completely flummoxed. And he says to Carson, "Would you like me to tap dance?" He apparently was a professional tap dancer. And Carson says, "You're not fucking tap dancing on my show." And that was the end. They came back from the commercial. He will then eventually, when the show is over, the 45-minute episode is over, Carson storms off the set, completely flummoxed by Garrison. But they get thousands and thousands of letters at NBC in Burbank and in New York saying that he was mistreated, Garrison, by Johnny Carson, who takes on another personality in the course of this interview. I mean, Johnny Carson was this,
genteel guy, almost.
Genteel guy from the Midwest. But they used him and scared the shit out of him, Carson, to do their bidding with these questions. And one of the longest ones is the opening question, which just meanders and goes on about, you said this about this, you said this about who killed Kennedy. It's not even a question. It's almost like an editorial statement that Sheridan had wrote for him to say. And this is really one of the first politicized NBC Tonight shows of all time. Anyway, so this goes on and the show goes on, and you see it depicted. If you could get the director's cut of JFK, which I strongly recommend, you will see what Eric is going to show you now, the John Larroquette version.
All right, we're going to go in and out. Just to let everybody know later, if you're watching this on YouTube on a replay and it's not here, you probably have to go to Rumble or Locals to see the whole thing because there's a copyright claim. But we're playing with the fire here, and let's see how we do.
What Garrison is going to do here is he's going to show the photos of the three tramps and who were arrested and claiming that they were involved with the conspiracy. NBC is a little nervous, as you can imagine, throwing up photos of these three people, whoever the hell they are. They may have been correct because years later, as we've shown in the show, the three tramps turned out to be three tramps and not E. Howard Hunt and not all these different people that people suggested they were. That's just simply not the case, no matter how many books you read in 1968. The fact of the matter was that they have been found, and here's NBC being put in a position. Now,
but don't worry, the comments will come in correcting you again.
Right, okay. You can correct me all day long, but they have been found and uncovered, and it's not your friends. It's not Charles Harrelson, okay, looking for that. It's not E. Howard Hunt. I know. But anyway, to make a long story short, NBC is nervous about these photos of whoever just being on camera, not knowing who the hell they are for legal reasons. However, what Oliver does, and he's apologized to John Larroquette in the audio track of the director's cut for not putting him in the movie, which is kind of, I mean, poor John Larroquette. I mean, what a performance as Johnny Carson, completely cut out. However, he has Kevin Costner as Garrison pulling these photos out. But in reality, as you're going to see when we get to it, it is Johnny Carson himself who shows the photos, not Jim Garrison. And I think Oliver never saw this, because if he had, he would have seen that it's Johnny Carson showing the photos quite freely of the three tramps. He's the one pulling them up and putting them on camera. Now, this goes on for quite a while with Garrison and Johnny Carson, but he's referring to his index cards written by Walter Sheridan to try to undermine Garrison's campaign to put Clay Shaw on trial. He hasn't been on trial yet, just so you know the timeline. This is leading up to it, and Haggerty's got the gag order on him, and yet here he is on the Tonight Show. So this is going to be interesting, put it that way. It's going to be interesting. Go ahead.
These are arrests.
When we get to the original, you're going to see how this tracks. I hope we could beat the copyright for at least a couple of days so people could see that. But if not, Rumble and Locals will have it in case you freak out and start losing your freaking mind over this thing. There's nothing we can do about it. So we're taking a shot at this because of the importance of the show itself and the importance of these two matching pieces of footage. Now, I don't know why Oliver did it his way, didn't do it, cut it out. I don't know what that's about. But I have never seen, nor has anybody else, seen the actual footage. It was stripped and erased, from what I understand. And I'll talk to Bob Grodin. I could talk to some other people who are original gangsters and see what their take is on what happened to the original footage. The audio has been floating around for years. I don't know, and maybe Eric could play a little bit of the audio at this time.
I just have the video. So
you don't have the audio?
No, not on hand. I have the
audio. Okay, well, the audio allows you to hear this long-winded introduction by Carson. Not introduction, but it's a long-winded first question of Carson, and maybe we could put it on Locals because I have it here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because the question, quote unquote question, is really an editorial written by Walter Sheridan that starts the interrogation of Garrison, and we'll put that on Locals, I guess, after the show, and you could hear the full audio. The audio has been around for a while, but you may want to re-listen to it because of the context of what we're talking about today. since all of this stuff is relatively untouched in terms of JFK investigations. The fact that Sheridan, through RFK, is sent, this is the Attorney General, soon to run for president within a year, to do this on TV is shocking to me. That RFK was as deeply involved in the manipulation of propaganda regarding the Garrison investigation, whatever his motivation is. His motivation, as I've said, may have been, now keep in mind, in March of '68, right here in right outside of LA in the Valley, he will say to a small group on the grass after his speech that if I am elected, I will reopen the Warren Commission and investigation into my brother's death. He will be dead within 60 days of that statement here in Los Angeles. So there's a lot of gravity and gravitas. Jeff Greenfield was involved in this too, by the way. The guy who was an editor of National Lampoon, Greenfield heard the conversation. Jeff Greenfield, who was at Lampoon before I was, who co-wrote the book Advance Man with Jerry Bruno, that we mentioned a couple of weeks ago. Jeff Greenfield will later go to ABC News as the Walter Sheridan of ABC. He will deny ever being at National Lampoon, which is embarrassing to him, but not to me. He was there right before I was as an editor. Jeff Greenfield claims to have been in the room when RFK was having the conversation with Johnny Carson. That's why I'm mentioning Jeff Greenfield. We also mentioned him last week as co-writing the book, The Advance Man by Jerry Bruno. Talks about the fight that Jerry Bruno had with Governor Connolly. You're right.
Sorry.
Oh, what do you got there?
It's the audio if you want me to try to play.
Yeah, go ahead. Go. Yeah. Oh, great.
Let me go back.
You want to play around with that for a while?
Yeah, I'm going to switch it to the other one that I found to see if the audio is better.
Okay, you play around with that, but I'll
secure a conviction without the shadow of a doubt.
I cannot make a statement which would reflect on Mr. Shaw. Since the day we charged him and arrested him, I have not made a statement which inferred that he's guilty, and I cannot infer that now. But I am trying to tell you that there is no question as a result of our investigation that an element of the Central Intelligence Agency of our country killed John.
I'm not sure where the intro question is, though.
No, it's okay. We'll find that for locals. But what both Sheridan and JFK believed was that there was a conspiracy to kill his brother. Whether that involved mobsters, I don't think they believed that, but they wanted to use the mobster theory that Blakey was postulating later, years after his death, but it's in the House Assassinations Committee, that the mob killed Kennedy. He wanted to be able to use that to continue to hit the mob with a heavy hammer. And he didn't like the fact that Garrison had ruled out the mob. In fact, Walter Sheridan went after Garrison, saying that Garrison was tied into the mob because he never went after Carlos Marcello, who they illegally, the Kennedy RFK, illegally kidnapped and flew to Guatemala and dumped in the jungle. That's how crazy these people were. They were completely outside the law, complete renegades, complete ideologues. And it's very similar to today. It's very similar to today. These were true believers. They had cited the mob as being evil, and they went after Jimmy Hoffa as if he was Satan. And he wasn't Satan. And they didn't give him a fair shake. I mean, 13 grand juries, that might be prosecutorial persecution, Eric. You know what I'm saying, right?
To make sure that there.
Go ahead.
Sure, I agreed with you.
No, I thought you were going to play some more. I heard a little snippet of it.
No,
okay.
Sorry.
So Garrison has Sheridan arrested, and Sheridan is now wanted by Garrison under arrest. And RFK comes out publicly out of the shadows to defend Sheridan by saying, wouldn't you think that I would want to get the killers of my brother? It's preposterous what Garrison is up to. I believe the Warren Commission. He again reinforces his phony belief in the Warren Commission, RFK, and he backs up Sheridan, who is being arrested by Garrison for tampering with witnesses, which is what he did. All of these witnesses that you see in the white paper, all those black guys in jail, were all tampered with by Sheridan, including Gordon Novel. And the arrest was not without legal merit. He eventually drops the charges, Garrison, because of the fuss of RFK coming out and saying, you know, don't you think I want to catch the killers of my brother? They have been caught, and it's Lee Harvey Oswald and blah, blah, blah. You know, but this war that I was saying to Eric before the show, the war that we're describing between Carson and Garrison is really a war between Garrison and Walter Sheridan. And that went on for a number of years. And Carson was just a stooge being used for that particular show. That's really the point I wanted to make. But what a stooge to be used by the CIA and be used by the deep state. And look, this guy, Walter Sheridan, is one of the most fascinating characters in American history for me. A guy who was ONI, NSA, FBI, and CIA. Holy crap. And then works for the Justice Department. And we're going to get into Walter Sheridan in future episodes because many people, when Kennedy's brother is killed, when RFK is killed, he takes on the same position with Edward Kennedy. And he begins to do the same stuff in the Watergate investigations that he did with RFK. And many people believed that he was Deep Throat. Which you're going to learn about once we get into the Watergate episodes. This is why I wanted to go down the Walter Sheridan rabbit hole, because he will then become the chief advisor to Edward Kennedy, and he will become the chief investigator for Kennedy during Watergate.
Wow, he's like an extension of the Kennedys.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Do we want to play
yeah, let's see. We got it. It's not that long. Let's see what we got.
Was to make sure that there were no conflicts contained within them. The agents were ordered to resolve the conflicts, prepare new reports, and to destroy the old one. Another example.
Well, what does all of that mean?
It means whatever you choose to have it mean. Again, if you ask me,
but if somebody's saying something, did that actually happen, or? I mean, you said that Mark Lane said that a man told him, but did it actually happen?
If you fly down to New Orleans, I can show you these people talking, but you just invited one person up here. I'm telling you what they said. Each time I tell you, you say, is that a fact? All I can say is that it appears to me to be a fact. If you want to reject it, you can.
Right.
But let me show you some pictures, and if you want to reject these, go ahead. In the 26 volumes...
You're not on trial, Jim. I'm just asking. As really,
Yeah, but I'm afraid another advertisement may be coming up.
You're right about that, too.
In the 26 volumes, there is no reference to any serious sort of arrest. There are a couple of references to short dialogues, and then the indication is that the man wasn't of any value or any importance at all. Actually, at Dealey Plaza, there were 10 men arrested, and this has been kept secret for more than 4 years. Here are the pictures of 5 of them being arrested, and they've never been shown before.
Well, I don't know.
Several of these men...
We just hold it for a second, Eric. This is what I was talking about. This is Carson
holding it up.
Holding up the photos of the famous 3 tramps. Carson is doing this. He's handed the photo by Garrison, but as Oliver depicts it, Garrison is holding up the photos to the camera, but that's not true.
Nope.
This is Carson doing it. Go on. I'm sorry.
Yep, and he did full frame. There it is.
Yeah, full
picture.
frame, bro. That's Carson doing it as an NBC employee.
Yep.
Connected by our office with a central intelligence agency of the United States government. The probability is that this is why Officer Tippit was killed. Is this speculation? Positively, and I want to identify it as that. But the probability appears to be that the killing of Tippit was the diversion which allowed them to turn loose these 10 men. Here's some more. And here's another.
It won't show, Jim.
But why aren't they mentioned? Why aren't they mentioned?
Yeah, but you say speculation and the probabilities.
No, now
which
just a
I
minute.
don't understand. Who's suppressing all of this information on whose order?
I'll tell you who's suppressing it. The federal government is suppressing.
All right.
This is really good. The part's coming up here because he's going to lead up to who is in charge of suppressing this evidence here, which some people in the audience may already guess as to who that person might be. But to say it on national television, woo, Lordy, go ahead, Eric. This is gold.
Who in the federal government?
The administration of your government is suppressing it because they know that the Central Intelligence Agency...
On whose order?
On the order of the President of the United States. Who do you think issued... Let me finish now.
I didn't say a thing.
Before the advertise... The executive order, which forbids every person in this audience and every person listening to this program, which forbids them to look at this evidence until September in the year 2039, was issued by the President of the United States. Does that answer your question? He's suppressing it.
For what possible reason?
Well, he says, why don't you ask him? Which the audience cracks up laughing. There's parts of this in the audio track where the audience is just laughing their asses off with Garrison, who is very humorous with Johnny Carson. You talk about a professional comedian versus a district attorney, but the humor factor is switched. He says, why don't you ask him? He says, when you meet him, meaning LBJ. Wow.
Yeah, well, we're going to have this up. I will publish it widely tonight or tomorrow so everybody can, watch the entire thing at their leisure, and we're getting it out there. And there's another little clip that I found that I'm going to try to slap onto it as well to extend it all out.
What else do you have in terms of these part 2 clips? Can you show a little bit of part 2?
Sure. Hang on.
Okay. Yeah.
Why don't you ask him, John?
Hold on. We get it.
Escape.
This is pretty funny.
This is fact.
This is pretty funny.
Escaping from the worries of cooking for your family is easy when there is a holiday nearby.
That's funny. That's funny. This is
Jim, I
part
really
2,
don't
Eric.
know where to go on this.
He's run out of index cards.
We could pursue this, I suppose, for hours and hours. We've been out here almost an hour tonight. And I have to say, as a layman, I am still quite confused. I don't understand. As you say, this will come to trial eventually, but it could be years, could it not?
Not as far as we're concerned. We're pushing for trial now. There won't be any continuances asked for by my office.
Could I ask you one other question? When the evidence against the commission, which you have nothing to do with and refute, I guess, almost in toto, outside of that Ruby killed Oswald. But in lieu of that evidence, which you say, I think you said was a fairy tale, if I'm quoting you right.
That's a conservative description.
All right. You are asking us and the American public to believe that a team of 7 gunmen carried this out with precision, firing from various points that day in Dallas, which is a remarkable feat in itself, and have disappeared into thin air with no witnesses who ever saw any other gunmen or getaway vehicles, and a gigantic conspiracy in which nobody seems to have yet proved anything. You asked us to believe that. I find that a much larger fairy tale than to accept the findings of the Warren report.
Let me reply to you by saying, first of all, that these men did not disappear into thin air. A number of them were arrested, and I just showed you pictures of them being arrested. I presume you accept that as a fact. You can see them in the picture.
No, sir, I don't accept that as a fact. I don't know who those men are, and I don't know for what reason they were arrested. And how can you say that the assassins were arrested and then were turned loose? Is what you're saying?
Some of them were arrested, yes. Now, let me go on.
And then were subsequently turned loose.
They were turned loose later in the afternoon. Now, yes, let me go to the second point. The second point is you point out again the fact that you see no evidence and the matter doesn't seem to come to trial. We are pushing for trial, and there's nothing more we can do than try to get the case to trial. Let me sum it up by saying, am I asking the people of America to believe this? I'm doing more than that. I'm trying to tell the people of America that the honor of this country is at stake. And if we don't do something about this fraud, We will not survive, and there is no way to survive if we don't bring out the truth about how our president was killed 4 years ago. And the investigation by the Warren Commission wasn't even close. It wasn't even close.
We'll be
Okay,
back.
well, that's a good little segment there. All right, so they could see the rest of this, Eric, on Locals.
Well, it'll be on YouTube. I'm just releasing this wide because I want everybody to have it.
Right. Okay. So, but I mean, tonight you're going to.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get it out there tonight or tomorrow. I found another little piece that I want to see if I can slap on. If not, I might just release this, and that's fine.
All right. Well, I think we're getting a little snippet of the. It's shocking to me. It may not be shocking to you because I've listened to this audio my whole life. To physically see it is stunning. To physically see something that's only been audio, it would be like listening to the 1939 World Series or 33 World Series with Babe Ruth in it, and then physically seeing it. I know there's some film of it, but I mean, seeing it on TV as a regular game. It's just shocking to see this so clean and clear from NBC out of Burbank. Wow.
Yeah, I went ahead and the footage I had, I upscaled it, cleaned it, ran audio processing, so I think it's got a good sound, as good as possible. My favorite thing though is dropping it into a text to you when I'm like, "Hey, I've got it." You're like, "Yeah, whatever."
I said audio. I said audio was the first thing because I don't know anything else, and neither does anyone else. I sent it to Jim DiEugenio, and I think he has committed suicide.
Jesus, not that.
But anyway, I send it to Jim. I'll hear back from him. Maybe he's had it for years. I don't really know. But wow, what a find by you about this thing, and also our fans who sent it in to the show. What Pat, I think her name is, or Pamela.
Pamela. Well, it's Pamela Gwindo, Edwards Clifton, with big RFK fan.
Well, this episode is going to lead into Edward Kennedy because of the connection with Sheridan. So it's not just a random episode about Garrison. It's more about the Kennedy family and RFK's connection to the deep state. I can't say this enough. What they did, the Kennedys, was create their own deep state, and they did not trust the CIA, so they created their own CIA. If I know it's a simple statement, but that's a kind of what they did. There was a bunch of these different private intelligence companies that were around at the time that were, again, above oversight, and they were funded, and they did the bidding of various people, and they were private, so they were not CIA, FBI, ONI, or NSA. But they were elements of those groups being used by people in power who didn't trust those other agencies. So I'll just leave it at that.
All right. Well, I'm going to go to the super chats, which we always appreciate, and that keeps us going. Before I get into the super chats, Jeffrey McFadden really wants you to know. He says it's pronounced Novell. So,
okay. Good for you.
Okay, Jeffrey.
Well, that's Jeffrey McFadden, who says that, but nevertheless.
Right. But now Duce is saying, if we'll never know the shooters, can you best summarize your opinion of why?
Yeah, for a couple hours. I'll do it on Locals when you come over.
Anyway.
Thank you for the tribute, by the way. Thank you.
To Gator, or TW Gator, I guess, 4 months. Time flies when you're having fun. I always appreciate seeing comments from members who've been around a while. It'll flag them like every month or so. John McGill, love you guys. I'm a Caltech alum, but never heard the story of Jack Parsons. Was the story classified? Addicted to Willie Nelson music lately.
No, Jack Parsons was not classified, and the episode covers as much as I could squeeze into it. I mean, there's more about Jack Parsons. We just didn't have the time to cover it, but people who went to Caltech at the time out here, well, I assume he's in California because Caltech's in Pasadena. I mean, the story of Jack Parsons has been around for a while. I didn't come up with it. I mean, there's a number of books on Jack Parsons that you could read, and his wife is a fascinating separate story. So Wormwood Star, I think, is the name of the book about his wife.
All right. Randy H. with $20. Thank you very much. Packer Jack, sorry. Excellent narration, Mark. In my new book, Where Was Skip? I detail Garrison's failed subpoena of Lauren Hall, Hall's false alibi for 11/22/63, and proof that Hall was in fact in Dallas on that day. #1 new releases on Amazon.
Okay. So we'll check it out. That sounds interesting. Check it out.
Tracy Christmas is a new member. Thank you very much. And then BTK saying Garrison doesn't suffer fools. The tramps are not dressed as hobos or tramps. Shine shoes on one. Carson was told to be unprepared, and he wasn't.
Carson was told to be unprepared, and he wasn't. I don't know if he was told to be unprepared. He was.
Why would anybody tell a host, hey, by the way, be unprepared? You're going to have somebody come on. Don't be prepared. Don't talk to them.
Garrison was wrong about a lot of things, and 3 of them were the tramps. Doesn't undermine his trial of Clay Shaw, who Helms on his deathbed said was an agent of the Central Intelligence Agency. Clay Shaw committed perjury in that trial 6 or 7 times, but he was wrong about the 3 tramps. So NBC might have known, not that they were not 3 tramps, but they just didn't want to put up 3 people on the screen. And I think that may be why the video was scrubbed, Eric. This is my hunch. I think the video was scrubbed because of those 3 tramps.
Could be. It also could be the dispute because of Garrison getting that fairness doctrine. They're just trying to bury it. That could have been a compromise as well.
Well, they didn't bury the 67 fairness doctrine video. They didn't scrub that. I think they scrubbed it because they didn't know who those guys were.
Could be.
Yeah.
NJ Kathy with a super sticker. Thank you very much. And then Jews Nuts. Amazing content. Mind blowing. Thank you all for enlightening us.
Thank you, Nuts.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nuts.
Anyway. Wow. Okay.
Well, how many guys were in the CIA, the FBI, ONI, and NSA? I want to know.
No.
I mean, maybe some guy's going to raise his hand going, my dad was in all 4, or 2 out of 4, or 3 out of 4. But this guy was in all 4. I mean, he's the hero of the deep state, Walter Sheridan. Again, he quit the FBI in protest because they were just going after commies. And he
like commies. No, sorry.
I mean, he said he was a liberal. I mean, they, whatever. I mean, there was another guy named Mark Felt who was also a liberal that we're going to get into in a couple of episodes about Mark Felt. And we'll see who Deep Throat was. Was it Walter Sheridan or was it Mark Felt? I mean, those are 2 future episodes. So we'll see who the hell's who on this thing because I'm getting confused.
Was it Deep Throat?
Maybe there's another level of Deep Throat. I don't know. Maybe Sheridan did work with guys like Mark Felt within the agency. He was there for 4 years. And if he was working with FBI agents, which he was, I would assume Mark Felt would be one of them as a fellow Democratic liberal drinking painter, finger painter, op art, jazz listening Democratic liberal in the FBI, which was Mark Felt.
Yeah, it could be. Let me check for anything on Rumble. Oh, DB Crazy sent a rant and asked, where has this video been stored?
I don't know. We have no idea. That's why we did the episode, bro.
No idea. It just came up.
Literally came out from outer space.
And it's really clean. I mean, really even though clean. I upscaled it, it's still clean because so much of the video, like we played some of the video, that people get from the time. And, it's hard to watch. Like, hold on. We've got another clip here about William Gurvich quitting.
Go ahead.
And, this is typical of the time video.
See Garrison about re-evaluating the DA's assassination probe, but at first he was told he could not go in.
And then the missing sound for a minute.
Yeah.
Are you telling me I can't come in my office? Right.
He was allowed to go in moments later, but Gurvich and added this about Garrison's investigation.
And I think the investigation has to be stopped. I would have preferred it to be stopped by his now processing the matter. And
Sweaty, isn't it, Gurvich, huh?
If I can't get it done that way, how else are you
tough
going
to
to do
lie
it?
on camera.
The evidence is there.
You think Mr. Garrison should be allowed to continue to operate his office?
In this manner? The manner in which he conducted this alleged assassination probe? No, I don't.
No. The check's in the mail.
You think he should be taken out of that office?
I don't know about being taken out now. I just say that it was done unethically, with no regard to the rights and privileges of people.
Yeah.
By the way, that's
thank you, Gurvich. Thank you.
That video is from Helmer Ringberg. If you want to check out a lot of old footage of JFK, Mark Lane, stuff like that, Helmer Ringberg is phenomenal.
Very good. Yeah, very good. He's got a lot of old stuff. But what Eric was pointing out is true. The quality of that is a million times worse than the quality of the Garrison NBC Johnny Carson show that we just ran.
Yeah, it's surprisingly good. So
wow. Maybe it's in somebody's attic or something on a beta max or some kind of clean thing that was never shown.
It could be. It had a spinning like countdown thing, like it was raw, footage that somebody had grabbed, before it was cut. I cut that out obviously for here, but yeah, I don't know. I do not know, but I'm very thankful that somebody found it and shared it. So
wow.
I will pass that forward.
Wow.
We got one more.
A lot of dots here, so I wore my dot tie today. I knew there were going to be a lot of dots for this crazy episode, so I wore the dot tie. But holy Christ! I mean, I don't mean to say that bad about Jesus, but wow! I mean, there was a guy. This is really weird. This is really inside baseball, but there was a guy named E.G. Parton, and E.G. Parton was a Hoffa associate that Sheridan and RFK flipped during the McClellan rackets, and he was the one who said that it's made up, of course, that Hoffa was going to assassinate RFK by blowing him up with dynamite. This was another method they used to try to get Hoffa. It failed because it was so crazy that even the jury wouldn't buy it, the grand jury. But their attempts to get Hoffa, which we're going to get into the Get Nixon squad that Jeff Shepard is going to talk about. The Get Nixon unit was the same exact people from the Get Hoffa unit that was run by Walter Sheridan and RFK.
Well, that works. Let's see. Anthony Robinson. Can we get a sweet 8F group episode? Members are rich Texans, oil intelligence, and military connections.
It's a little too broad. I'd rather do episodes on individuals.
All right. With occasional, like we did Secret Service, that was
that's because of that particular one event. But I mean, we do within there, we delineated each person with the help and backing of Vince Palomaro, who's got a new book coming out in October or November. Yeah.
BTK Sheridan felt Bobby Baker, who's deep throat.
Well, Felt says he is. I mean, Bobby Baker at that point, I think, has some problems. But Sheridan, I've never heard that before. So I'm going to start looking into Sheridan as deep throat and see where that goes. But most people assume it's Mark Felt because Woodward and Bernstein admitted it was Mark Felt. But
he claimed it. They admitted it. So
right. I mean, it's kind of an open and shut case. I think the Sheridan rumor about Deep State was before Mark Felt revealed he was, because there was many rumors about different people being deep throat, and I think Sheridan was one of those rumors, and I think it ended with Felt admitting he was deep throat.
All right. Well, we're going to carry this conversation on over to locals. Follow Oswald. Head over to locals again.
Can we show another snippet of the video?
That's I've shown basically what it is. There's only a little snippet in between that I didn't show. I'd have to track it down. So
right. What do you want to do over there? You want to talk about this, or? Well,
we've got people over there who have got, they provided tips, things like that. We're going to cover, talk over whatever questions they might have. And as we've said before, you can be a member on Locals for free on structured.locals.com.
Right. I just want to point something out. Go ahead. I'm sorry. These, because people always ask me about, like, where do you get this information from? There's a book called Spooks by Jim Hogan. I mean, just about this particular episode. Highly recommended. On the Trail of the Assassins by Garrison himself. A Farewell to Justice by Joan Mellon. And also the mother of all books, Destiny Betrayed by Jim DiEugenio. All four of these books cover stuff in this episode today, plus a bunch of other books. But that's where money goes from the book fund that you're sending in donations to. So I really appreciate it when you do send it in, because these books are part of the research that Eric and I do. And it really helps when you donate some money to the book fund. So thanks for that. But Eric's got some more to talk about, which is stuff about subscribing, maybe.
Subscribing's always welcome.
Hold on.
There's even a magical bell.
Really? How does the sound, by the way, today? All you people who said I should buy.
They've already said it sounds better. Don't jinx it.
Whoa, I'm so shocked. The same microphone. It's shocking, isn't it, you experts? There's the bell. Let's see if you can subscribe. Let's see what happens here. All these sound experts out there told me to get a new microphone.
Oh, come on now. And who knows? We may have actually crossed. Yes, we crossed 109,000.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Oh, that's great. I think if we got to 200 or 250, I don't mean today, but in the course of a year and a half or whatever it takes to get there, I think we get some more respect out of YouTube than we currently get being bitch slapped by them every other week.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice. And so far, this is holding up. That's part of the reason to stay ahead. David Presley saying, loving the show. I'm from Texas, but I currently live in Houma, Louisiana.
Wow, that's great. So he knows where the Slumber Corporation operates out of. They obviously involved in drilling and explosives for drilling in that area, Louisiana, for oil. Schlumberger, a French company. I just want to keep saying it so people don't criticize me for mispronouncing it.
Okay, well, now you could say Novell a bunch of times.
Novell.
And I feel better on that.
Yeah, this guy's sitting at home going, I got to make him say Novell. I can't take it anymore. I can't take all these facts. He's giving me too many facts.
I don't know how many times he wrote no-vel in the
How many
chat,
times? You think he's a psycho? You think he might be a psycho?
I'm sure that he just wants me to see that it's Novell. And
why? What is the difference? Who gives a shit? All right, let's go over to locals. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'll meet you over here in a couple minutes.
All right, we'll be.
All right.